Good afternoon and happy Labor Day weekend, and happy September too. I really wanted to extend the warmest welcome to our humanities series called The Hot Topics. And we're live in Hudson, New York, and from Hudson Hall, which has been anchoring us. This is really all about local artists, local designers, and local venues. So really, in addition to our thanks and our appreciation for your time, I just wanted to give us a little bit of context as we kick off. The Hudson Eye is a nonprofit effort. It's really all about local artists and local venues, as well as their organizations. It's curated annually by Erin Levi Garvey, and who then selects lead panelists to then build out the humanities series. The Hudson Eye wishes to say thank you and express appreciation to our board, also to the J.M. Kaplan Fund, to Humanities New York, as well as many, many others. And forgive me for forgetting the Hudson Tourism Board and the Common Council as well. There's really a lot to say thankful for in this unusual 2020. But I'll hand it over to Erin Levi Garvey, who curates the festival annually. And just the most special shout out to Sherry Jo Williams and to the unbelievable caliber of speakers that we're lucky enough to welcome today. If you're in Hudson, you can get involved. A lot of it's walkable, outdoors, and at safe distances. And please stay safe, and thank you for your time.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another edition of the Hot Topics. Today, we are focusing on design in the Hudson Valley, something that goes back to the Hunzingers and the Herter brothers and Duncan Fife. And it's not new territory, but it's ever changing. And there's a long lineage of design in the Hudson Valley. It will feature regional designers now, each with a specialty and connection to the Hudson, New York, moderated by designer and journalist Sherry Jo Williams. This discussion features interior designers Sheila Bridges, Robert Fuller, Brown Cranna, and Jane Smith. I want to remind everyone that there's a Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen. Please submit your questions, and at the end, I will pop back in and moderate in order in which they were received, and we can open up the discussion. So I'll volley to Sherry now. Enjoy, everyone.
Hello, and welcome to the Hudson Eye Hot Topics. My name is Sherry Jo Williams, and welcome to Hudson Design, Present, Past, and Future. When I was asked by Erin Levi Garvey and Jonah Beaucaire to create a panel about design in Hudson, I was excited and it was challenging. The question was, how do I organize that? How do I pull together from the vast pool of talent here in the Hudson Valley and in Hudson especially? So I decided to focus on architects, interior designers, and a visual director. I'm very honored to be here, and I wanted to start with a quote from Buckminster Fuller. He's always been a source of inspiration for me. And the quote is this: "A designer is an emerging synthesis of artists, inventor, mechanic, objective economist, and evolutionary strategist." It's a lot, because that's what designers do. There are so many different aspects to being a designer, but it means that you're seeing and problem solving. And given the current paradigm shift that we're all living in and through and have been in for almost 6 months, it's challenging to understand how we as designers can come together and solve problems collectively, individually, for our clients, how I can write about it. And so I'm thrilled to have this panel of esteemed designers in the Hudson Valley. To start off our question and answer and conversation, I want this to be a conversation. I want us to pretend we're sitting at a table at Hudson Hall, which is where we would have been if we weren't all sequestered away in our homes. So the first question is for everybody, and Sheila, you can start off. The question is, how has the last 5, almost 6 months affected your life and your career? You live near Hudson. Just tell us about it a little.
The last few months have been difficult. Both personally and professionally. It's just been a lot. I think. When COVID sort of hit, I think, most of us, I remember saying to a friend the other day, I remember people saying, this might last until the summer. And everybody said, the summer? No, it can't last till the summer. Meanwhile, here we are, and it's Labor Day weekend. So, I think it was, that was the first layer. And then, for me, the death of George Floyd added another dimension during this period, which made all of it compounded. I think very, very, very emotional for me. My design business was shut down, was closed for several months. So currently I'm trying to sort of figure my way out of that and navigate kind of this new territory. My home furnishings business in the last few months has picked up, because I think right now people are at home, people are focused on their homes, on ways that they can inexpensively, sort of improve their environment at home. So, that's been interesting, for me to sort of navigate that as well. But, I've been here pretty much since March.
Where is here, Sheila?
I'm just outside Hudson in Livingston.
Okay. Yep.
But, 10 minutes outside of Hudson. I've always been, for the last, 25 years, been about 10 minutes outside. When I originally came to the Hudson Valley, 25 years ago or whenever it was, my first home was in Germantown, and I was there for almost 20 years. And I was on the Hudson River, and then I sold my home and then decided I wanted to build a smaller home and downsize because I had a farm. And so, what you're seeing in the backdrop is sort of, one of my sort of design build projects. So, so I've been coming to Hudson since, I guess, the late 80s, early 90s. Even when I didn't have a home here, I would do a day trip with a friend. We would rent a car. We would do one side of Warren Street, have lunch at sort of the one, or maybe there were 2 restaurants, at the time. Usually it was, certainly in the early 90s, it was the Charleston. And then would do the other side of Warren Street and then drive back home. But it's always been a place for me to source materials, furniture for clients. And, and just by doing those day trips, I really, fell in love with the area and decided to settle here.
Excellent. I knew you'd been upstate for a long time, but I didn't know how long. Jane, how long? Tell us what you're up to and what the last 5 months have been like for you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. It has been, it's been a challenge, and there have been silver linings. And my primary business is in New York City. We've got about 30 people there. Our office there looks over the New York Harbor. And those 30 people are working dispersed in all of their different and sundry places. And here in Hudson, we have an office on Warren Street that has, there are 5 of us here, and no one's coming to the office here. I commute from my new house that Sheila, we're probably 5 minutes away. I'm right outside of Hudson as well on Middle Road,
Oh, sure.
right by 23. So my wife and I built a house here about a year ago, and I'm the only one that goes into the Hudson office, which is at 555 Warren, and I have the, you know, the copy machines and the scan machines. I feel like I'm the wizard behind the curtain.
Yeah, well, it's
you
nice
know,
that you have a new home and an office that, so everyone is working remotely in the city and here.
Yeah, and it's quite extraordinary, you know, to have this diverse group of people, how they learn to work together. We have projects still under construction. We have projects in design. How do we learn to collaborate in all these different ways, learning new ways of collaboration, new software. For me, it's hard for me to keep up. You know, even Zoom was hard to, and now we're trying to figure out all these different ways of working, and it's exciting. That part is exciting. There's been the intensity, as Sheila said, of what's happening. You know, we can't let go of all of the different people that are not in their nice country houses in the Hudson Valley that are really struggling with what's going on right now. And so there are big, big issues, and how do we hold on to those issues and yet also take care of ourselves? So,
Absolutely.
challenge.
Brown, you want to tell us a little bit about your practice? I know you have an office in Long Island City and an office in Chatham. You're on mute.
Sorry, here I go. Yeah, no, I'm in Long Island City and right here in my living room in Hudson. I closed my office in Chatham. I just didn't use it enough. Yeah, so these last couple of months I've been pretty much here. I just started going back to New York a few days a week just to go shopping, you know, to do what I needed to do to keep my business going and my clients happy. It's been challenging, certainly, you know, with the pandemic and with, you know, the political strife and everything else that's happening. And it's really made me pause and think about like what my role in the world is, you know, as a person individually, as a designer, trying to find some kind of significance in that. And like, I'm certainly not an essential worker, but I wonder like to myself, like, you know, how can I be part of it as opposed to, you know, how can I give as opposed to just taking, you know? I realize that, you know, my clients are, you know, for the most part, you know, people who are well off, but there's many people obviously, and certainly in this town, who are not. And I keep thinking that, you know, again, like, you know, what my role is as a designer and as an individual in these times. And I can say that, you know, I mean, within my business, I'm able to employ a lot of craftspeople and tradespeople. And I feel like that's part of, you know, the collective. But it's
also part of the valley, yeah, and this area.
Yeah, I mean, not just here, but also in the city, and also, you know, I work all over the place. So it's been challenging. I mean, it's scary and it's awkward. But I've been able to be here since March, and I saw spring, which I sort of just glimpsed as I come up for the weekends or you know, up and down the Taconic. I got to hear the birds. So there's been some, you know, some lovely points to being here, but overall it's been challenging. Yeah.
Thank you, Brown. Robert Fuller is the new kid on the block. Robert, tell us a little about you and what's been going on for the last 5.5 months. You're working really remotely, right?
I am.
Having business here.
I am SJ. Yeah, the last 5 months. Wow. So I have 2 lives. I live 2 lives. I am the visual director at Chanel, and of course my office is in the city. But I haven't been there since March. I've really picked up. I've left my home in the city and have quarantined about 35 minutes west of Hudson. And I've been working remotely ever since. The other life that I have is about 2 years ago, I decided to start my own home furnishings, vintage home furnishings business in Hudson. And, you know, when the pandemic hit, obviously home furnishings are not on the priority list of many. So I just felt that it was the end or the death to my small business that I just started in Hudson. So it was unnerving, to say the least, as I tried, as well as everyone else, tried to find relief to help keep paying the rent for our spaces and studios. It was something that we felt we didn't know what was happening. And I say was because as designers, it has forced us to adapt to new social norms, to find creative ways to adapt our skills and our services, and accommodate the new normal. When you walk down Hudson, you see shop owners bringing their furniture outside onto the sidewalk, which is amazing to see. Before then, it was a little depressing, and you felt like you had no hope for your business. So that's one end, the pandemic. The other issue of racial injustice, quite frankly, I found the positive silver lining in it all because the conversation of race has often been an uncomfortable one to have. And I feel that our society has really swept it under the rug. But what has happened over the past 5 months, at least for me, is it's really helped me to have that open dialogue, either one-on-one or in groups, about race and racial relations. And it's really helped me to see and find ways that I can support and foster diversity and inclusion within the design industry.
Thank you, all of you, for sharing in depth on that opening question, because when I was trying to consider how to frame this conversation, that's where I started moving the words around in past, present, and future. And it's a tongue twister because even I sometimes mess it up. But I thought we should really begin with the present, this moment that we're living in, which is an ever expanding moment. It is both shocking, terrifying, and hopeful, all at the same time. I personally have so many different emotions about being in the world of design, and I'm grateful for Hudson and its design community. The next question for everybody, and let's start in the other direction. Maybe Brown can share. Hey, Brown, how do you feel about I'm on social media a lot. I see New York Times articles. The Hudson Valley is currently experiencing a massive migration out of New York City into the Hudson Valley, with good reason. Many feel the fear of another wave of gentrification, which leaves out those who don't have shops on Warren or don't have clients that can afford to build a second home or a third home or renovate or buy furniture. So the question is, how do you feel about Hudson and the Hudson Valley becoming a mecca again? Because you have a personal history with this place. So tell us, Brown, what do you think?
Well, I'm from Hudson. I was
Yep.
born and raised here. I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, throughout the 70s, and I left around 1980. And certainly Hudson was a different town then. It was small mom and pop businesses that aligned Warren Street. It had a different vibe. It was, there was industry here. There was manufacturing here. So it supported a middle class and a diverse middle class. And but I left because Hudson sort of closed up. Once the shopping malls came in Fairview Avenue, people's businesses closed, the stores closed, the buildings got boarded up. So as a young man, I knew New York was for me. So, but I understand that now with what's going on in in the world with the pandemic and the fact that, you know, people really don't want to be in New York all that much. And if they can leave, if they have the option to leave, they do, which is, I understand. I guess my worry would be like, you know, is sort of the over gentrification of the Valley and of Hudson. Just because I sort of see it from a different perspective as sort of an old local, you know, and I've got family here who see the gentrification sort of as a threat. You know, I guess, I don't know. It excites me because there's a vibe and there's some great energy happening and there's all different kinds of people and there's all different kinds of conversation. And that really excites me. But it does worry me that I think that, you know, perhaps, you know, local families, you know, local businesses may have a hard time with the change. But what it does for me is it avails me to be able to, you know, to have the possibility of actually living up here full time and making a living. And that excites me because I love it here. It's my home. And, you know, this is where I want to be. And I don't know, you know, there's room for everyone. But I just think we need to be conscientious of each other.
That's beautiful. I love your perspective. Backstory, I met Brown in the 80s when we were kids, and he never mentioned that he was from Hudson. I don't remember. And then when I moved to Hudson and discovered it by default, seeking an outlet from Manhattan where I could go by train, because my partner and we don't have a car. We have a very small carbon footprint. Got off the train here, looked around, said, great, I'm going to open a gallery. Called, I think Brown was one of the first people I called. He said, I know that place. I had a brother who was a mayor, you know, so that history is there. So let's see who we would hear from on this, the Hudson Valley being a Mecca. Jane, you want to talk about that?
Sure. It's I certainly haven't been here as long as Brown has been here, and it's great to meet a real local. I came in 2005, and I bought a house on Union Street, and it was a quick purchase, and I ended up gutting it, renovating it, and finding my partner Jules here and creating an amazing community. And it was a community of a combination of people who had grown up here and had kids, and people who were transplants like myself. And it was really exciting. And I still felt like I was kind of in, you know, a renegade in a sense here. But I loved the city, and I was never going to leave the city. And I had an apartment in the West Village, and I was never going to give that apartment up. And then 2009 happened, and it was, you know, and I had an architecture and design firm, and I just built a new big office, and the work had stopped. I'd like to say I had clients, they just weren't doing any work. And the next thing I knew, I was giving up my apartment and moving to my house in Hudson and becoming an Amtrak commuter. And I thought it would be one summer, and it's been I think 10, 12 years that I've been doing that. And so this became a haven for me. It was a way that I could get away. And now I used to be able to go down this Warren Street, and as many of us did, feel like the mayor. Everybody, I knew everybody. I could talk to everybody. I'd say to people, hey, come over to my house around the corner for a cocktail, you know, and now I don't know so many people. But I also feel that this was here for me. It can be here for other people. And I hear you, Brown. We need to figure out how to engage the whole community of Hudson and not just gentrify this place. And Sheila and I are the new members of the Alana board, and I'm looking forward, we're just meeting today, but I'm looking forward to thinking about how can we get more people from our inner city of Hudson, to be able to, you know, use those grounds, to be able to, how can we continue to make this a vibrant city? And that's what is wonderful about it, because it is a diverse city. And if the gentrification just means, you know, fancy rich people come and are impatient, that's not going to work. But if we can figure out a way to make everyone work together. Where I built my new house is in a neighborhood where all of my neighbors grew up here. It was their great grandfather's property. They can tell me stories, and I love that. I'm from Wyoming. I love those old stories, you know. So we have to find a way to keep that here.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the overarching, the inclusion of all communities here. I'm a community activist. I'm a writer and a curator. And when I think I've been on 4 boards here. I was never on a board in my life, but I've been very involved and grateful for the diverse community, and to hear from the design community, design leaders like yourselves who are eager to keep reaching out. Robert, Hudson becoming a mecca for the antique business. Are they shopping for antiques again?
So I first discovered Hudson back in the late 90s, SJ, and fell in love with it. The charm, the vibe. I'm a nostalgic person. So just the architecture alone just makes you, it exudes nostalgia. How could you not fall in love with a city like this? So I would come up every weekend, basically, and it was my own little personal respite from the city. So much so that I selfishly didn't tell my friends about it. I would just disappear for a weekend, and I'd stay at this little place called the Union Street Guest House, which isn't around anymore. But I
down the neighbor,
right
2 doors from me.
Oh, yeah. When you said Union Street, yeah. I love that place. And I would come up there. My friends couldn't find me, and that was fine because Hudson was my place. I loved it here. And still do. So fast forward to 2019, and I open my business in, of all places, Hudson. Why would I open it anywhere else? And I saw the question on one of the questions from the audience, and in response to that, the name of my business is Robert at Home. It's located in the large warehouse across from the Amtrak station next to Basilica. I feel like I'm giving myself a little plug, but anyway.
Okay.
So
it's all good.
Now that now that the pandemic is, we're getting a hold of what this is and we're adapting. People are returning to shop for their homes again. I think Sheila said something a little earlier about people are spending more time taking care of their homes and making it suitable for themselves and making it more comfortable. So with that said, I do see an increase of people coming into the shop, into the space, and looking for vintage items, looking for things that, again, they're nostalgic just like I am, thank goodness. And so they want that bit of comfort. They want those creature comforts. And so they are coming back out and looking for those things. So yeah, for that, I'm grateful for the exodus, because I'm also a part of that exodus and a refugee.
Yes. In a way, we all are. So I love the way the conversation is flowing. It's perfect. I had outlined some questions and suggested that so it's working out great. I'm thrilled. Thank you. Thank you. Now let's just touch. So if that's the present, and then in the past, Sheila, can you tell us where are you from, and how did you wind up loving the Hudson Valley? Why didn't you wind up somewhere else?
Well, let's see. That's a long, complicated story. So I
can leave out the names if you like.
Originally, I'm from Philadelphia, and I live. I still have a home in Harlem, which is where I've lived for the past 30 years. And having grown up in Philadelphia, also spending time in Harlem, coming up here regularly, for me, it has a lot to do with comfort. I had been sort of a Hamptons person for many, many years, and sort of made the decision to kind of say goodbye to that life and come up here because I just felt a different sort of sense of community. And even though it wasn't the kind of community that's here now, for me, I always feel more comfortable having a home in a place where I see people who look like myself. And for many people who never venture off of Warren Street, they don't realize, you know, what a significant African-American population actually exists in the municipality of Hudson. So, you know, again, coming from Harlem and also growing up in Philadelphia, for me, there was just immediate comfort with that. So I think that played into the decision-making process. I've always wanted to have land, and I kind of felt like the Hamptons for me was sort of a place that started to feel very cookie cutter, and I felt like one of the big differences with the Hudson Valley was that it was a place that you could carve out your life in whatever way you wanted, and you didn't have to have a lot of money to do that. And whether that meant, you know, living on a farm or living in the woods or living in the middle of, you know, Hudson, so that it's pedestrian and you don't need a car, and there's Amtrak. There were just all these different ways that I felt like you could sort of create, you know, sort of your life. So for me, that was important. I think that was one of the big draws. Ironically, I had a very good friend who loved sort of Greek revival. He was a big architecture buff. And so he and I would take trips up on the weekends. And, you know, again, one of the exciting things for me as a designer was that there were all these great homes, you know, kind of all over, whether it was colonial or Carpenter Gothic or Greek Revival or Federal, you know, and you just saw these sort of pristine examples all throughout kind of the Hudson Valley and in this area, you know, right outside of Hudson in particular. And so every week I would go with him to look at houses, and he wanted what I called important house, you know, as something that was sort of in the National Register or something like that. And for me, that wasn't important.
Those here.
and yeah, so every weekend I would go and I would look at these beautiful houses that had, you know, 6 fireplaces and these grand proportions, like in Claverick or Hudson, Athens, you know, in the area in general. And one weekend, I actually became friendly with the real estate broker, and I said to her, you know, I'm so tired of looking at these houses. They're beautiful, but this is not what I want at all. I'm interested in land, and I, you know, coming from the beach, like I would like, I think, to be near water, whether that's a pond or a stream or whatever it is. And it ended up that you know, I went to this property that she hadn't been to before, and it was on the river, and the views shed was just, you know, it was spectacular, you know, the Catskill Mountain Range. And I just, you know, fell in love with the property. And so I ended up actually buying a house before my friend, who I was coming up with all the time, you know, who wanted a house. He eventually did buy a house here. But so that's how I actually came here. And one of the first things I did, just wanting to feel like I was a part of the community, was to open a store on Warren Street. And many people haven't been here long enough to
Thank you for mentioning that.
Remember my shop, which was at 610 Warren, which then eventually was Hudson Food Studio before they moved to the larger.
Oh, that was your store.
That was my store.
Cool. It's a wine shop now.
It's a wine shop?
Wine tasting.
Oh, I thought it was, then it became a Mexican
for
thing.
5 minutes.
For 5 minutes.
It's hard to keep up with what things are right now. Right?
I know. So, and it was a home furnishing shop, and we sold everything from, you know, I'm sure can't be that dissimilar to Robert, you know, my love of antiques and furniture and design. So it was a mix of antiques, custom pieces, things that I designed, accessories. I was the only store in Hudson that sold dog accessories. I've always had animals, and sold, dog beds and leashes. And because once in a while I run into people who say, I still have, these dog bowls from your store on Warren Street. So, for me, it was important to come from New York City and participate, in the community, not just feel like I was kind of taking from the community. So, I've always taken advantage, I've always walked my dogs at Alana. I've always, tried to take advantage of all the things that are here sort of to offer. I think like most people, because I've seen so many different generations sort of come and go in the last 25 years, I am, I'd be lying to say that I'm not concerned about sort of over gentrification, the same way that I was concerned about it happening in Harlem. And so I worry about people getting sort of displaced, and I don't want it to turn into East Hampton, even though East Hampton is lovely. I feel like I left that specifically for a reason, and I just I am concerned when you see the changes and the transformation of, and just in terms of who the people are who are on Warren Street. And I think similar to you, Jane, so many people that I know when I walk down the street, over the years, of course, it sort of saddens me every time I see a dealer who I've, known for 20 some years close shop because of the challenges. I mean, there's a new generation of people here. Their needs are different than maybe, sort of my generation in terms of their shopping, in terms of what they want in a store. And it's challenging, but again, I do think that there's room. I just think that we have to be careful about how that's done, particularly going forward. I'm sure, like most of my friends who actually live in Hudson proper, seeing people with rolling luggage up and down Warren Street, just every weekend, is not necessarily, the ideal way that I think that Hudson should be sustained. So I don't know. I think it's going to be, interesting sort of going.
It'll require all hands on deck for managed growth and more housing.
And in addition to just the, to Hudson proper, my concern is also, the farmland. And I suddenly started seeing so many more for sale signs on land, and wonder about land conservancy and how that. And I was here during the entire, when the cement plant. Why am I drawing a blank as to
St. Lawrence?
What's that?
St. Lawrence.
Yes, when St. Lawrence Cement was, that huge fight that was here.
So you were part of that.
And I'm always concerned about that. So I think those are the things that everyone who's here and is committed to being here. It's not just an escape from New York, and I understand that everybody has the right, and certainly if you can afford to change your situation and not have to be in the city if you don't want to be, then I think that's great. But I also hope that some of the people that are coming here are committed to the area and the beauty and the history of the area, and are interested in helping to maintain that, certainly for future generations to be able to enjoy.
I so appreciate that. I saw somewhere that Kingston, did anyone else see this? Kingston has this dubious statistic of, in the country, more people have moved there from New York City in the last 5 months than, I don't know, it's like there's something going on in Kingston. It's closer to the city, etc. It's on that side of the river. I was originally attracted to Hudson because of the pedestrian quality, lots of blue sky, historic architecture, all the adaptive reuse here just blows me away. That's my taste. Basilica, Helsinki, and so on. So the last question for the past, I thought maybe Brown, we know you're from here and you shared a little bit about your past, but I'm curious how the historic architecture and places like Art Omai to the east and Alana to the west and Thomas Cole, how do those impact your design business? If you could share briefly with us, then we're going to move on to the future.
Well, I think, growing up here, and Hudson always seemed like there was great promise. It wasn't particularly gentrified. It was run down, but the buildings were spectacular. They held lots of history. Lots of people walked through those doors. I think as a young person, I was in tune to that, and I don't really know why, just who I was. I was also in tune to the light of the valley. Like Hudson sits in such a beautiful position. The light shines off the river against the mountains, and I don't know, like light and shadow always was really important to me as a kid, and I have always noticed it, and I've sort of taken that into my own career.
Brown, don't you love those nights? It's kind of like when the weather gets really crisp, and on Warren Street, that you have this blue sky that's this crazy iridescent blue sky, and that it's like a cutout of the buildings. It's
yeah. The light's spectacular here. It really is, and that's why people like Frederick Church and Thomas Cole were here, right, painting. And, it's just it's magical, really. And I've always held it dear to my heart, and appreciated it. And I certainly appreciate seeing the buildings in Hudson be repurposed and restored. It's a delight, really, that my little hometown is has turned into such a mecca for so many different kinds of people and in so many different ways. So, yeah,
we're gonna move on to the future. We've talked about the present, we touched on the past, and the question of what will happen to Hudson and what's happening to Hudson every day. There was another panel Peter Spear coordinated about open streets and how Hudson has followed the model of actually many small European towns of where there are furnitures on the sidewalk. You can have your coffee or your wine on the sidewalk, and so I'm interested to know from each of you. We'll start with just tell me what is next, what projects. I know a little bit about what Jane's up to, know a little bit about what Brown is up to. Brown, why don't you just tell us, what have you got up your sleeve?
I'm working right now in the Berkshires, in one of the big Berkshire cottages, which has been very exciting and a fabulous opportunity, because I actually get to buy a lot, if not most, of the furniture here in Hudson. And so I get to support my friends in the local community. I've still got some projects in the city, in Jersey. And also my partner Warren and I he's an antique dealer, and we've been thinking about opening up a shop on Warren Street to sort of be a part of sort of like the new Hudson, in the sense of like post-pandemic,
It's a full circle, because when I came here in 2010, there were lots of antique shops. And what is now the new library and the old armory.
Yeah, the old armory,
right. In there in 2011. So there seems to be a kind of full circle of design, both contemporary design and antiques, returning to the main drag. Robert, what have you have scheduled? What project? I mean, you are a corporate employee. You have a full-time job. Do you want to tell what you're doing with Chanel in the future? I mean, how's that working? Or you want to talk about antiques? It's up to you.
I got to talk about it all, SJ, all of it. Okay. So it goes back to my two lives right now. So as life evolves for all of us, and for me, it's going to be important for me to stay abreast of the latest developments on this pandemic. I got to keep an eye on changes to consumer behavior. How are people shopping now versus before the pandemic? My responsibility now as a designer, both for a large brand and my own, is about safety now. Safety, it's a priority. So how do I help people to shop safely is going to be the priority for the next.
Your focus is fragrance, is it not? And
at Chanel, yes, it's the
yes.
focus is makeup and fragrance specifically, and those are both things that people test and try
And they're
on a lot.
infinite in testers, right? Mm-hmm. And then,
So
then you have antiques, and people like to kick
we have,
tires, and they want to see how can you sit on that sofa? Yeah.
then you have all these things. I chose the wrong industry. What can I say? Everyone wants to touch and feel everything. But no, we have that. We all have some sort of responsibility now to do that. And you have the social front. Let's not forget about that. How do you do your part? How do I do my part in making sure that diversity and inclusion is in the design industry? Like speaking up, making sure to stop any conversation that's not appropriate when it comes to race relations. So, you know, it's a busy rest of the year ahead.
Yep. Sheila, what do you have? You said your furniture business had an uptick.
Yeah, it's my home furnishings business. So I am hopeful. You know, hopefully one of the things will happen. You know, now that there's been sort of this mass exodus out of New York, is that, you know, that for the first time, you know, maybe I will actually get to do a project here. My clientele has never been in the Hudson Valley, and it would be exciting if I, you know, could do a project locally. I'm trying to focus a lot more on design build right now. I just completed 2 design build projects just locally, which, you know, people follow me on Instagram. A lot of people have seen me sort of doing that. We did a renovation during COVID, which was challenging from a construction standpoint, but we got it done. And then continuing with my home furnishing business. So, and one of the focuses through that, with that is, you know, some of my brands, like my Harlem Toile brand, and continuing to do, find meaningful sort of collaborations, continuing to grow that brand in the marketplace, and the home furnishings marketplace, in the lifestyle marketplace, really. So creating, you know, reasonably priced, inexpensive products that are of, you know, kind of limited edition that people can enjoy in their homes. You know, right now, a lot of people, of course, can't afford to hire a professional interior designer or a decorator, and but people, I think, are craving, with all of the time that people are spending in their homes, people are craving sort of information or ways in which they can kind of upgrade and, you know, make sort of, suddenly these spaces which we design have to be more sort of flexible or fluid, whether it's your dining table is suddenly your office desk. It's also your classroom for your children. You know, there are all these different things,
variations.
Yeah, that have sort of shifted for us in terms of the meaning of how we design spaces. And, you know, for me, that's something that I want to sort of continue doing, and continuing that dialogue. And I think, you know, similarly to Robert, for me, you know, design activism is extremely important. It's important for people like myself to continue to use my voice and my platform to speak up about diversity and inclusion, which has always been an issue in the interior design and architecture, you know, field.
The statistic is like 4% people of color.
The numbers are just obscene. It's far worse with architecture than it is actually with interior design, in terms of the number of, you know, designers of color, architects of color, particularly women. And, you know, I think that has to change. And So, you know, I am generally fairly, you know, outspoken about all of that, and continuing to try to, you know, kind of again use my platform to hopefully, you know, use this moment in time where I think people are more receptive, listening, and are open and less defensive about having conversation, to have these conversations, even if they're uncomfortable for people, even if they're difficult. I think that they're absolutely necessary.
Thank you. I wanted to have that conversation become a natural part of this larger conversation and have it be transparent. And I thank you for addressing that. The last little bit for would be for Jane. Jane, you're working on 2 projects on Warren, right? Or more?
Yeah, well, I feel like Robert, that I have 2 sides. I have my New York City side, and we, you know, we're doing, we have about 8 US embassies around the world that we're working on. We do corporate workplace, education. We're doing the new Hermes flagship store. So it's a wide variety of
In Manhattan, Jane?
in Manhattan, larger corporate and institutional and government type of projects. And what happened, as I said, I moved here in 2005, and for a long time I said, no, I don't want to work up here. This is my escape. This is the place that I don't do things other than my own house and my neighbor's house, because I was going to be looking at that house. So, but about 2.5 years ago, I said, and it was really after I was more full-time here, I said, here is an opportunity for me to do what other people do when they come to Hudson, to be able to reinvent, to be able to do something different. And so I decided to start creating an office here as well. And I have 3, 4, 5 incredible people here now on the team. And it's a whole different type of work. We're working in Saugerties on a new film and television studio for Upriver Studios. And that supports an organization, Stockade Works, that trains people to work in the areas of production, local community people.
Oh, that's exciting.
So that when movies and films and such, and again, from a point of view from diversity, to be able to get local people to be able to work and have a film studio, which is going to be about 150,000 square foot film studio, that then the Netflixes and the, you know, come up and perform. So that's really exciting. And here in Hudson, we're working on Talbot and Artie's new store, which is really exciting. And Kate and Mona are just incredible members of the community who have worked hard and built an amazing brand starting right here in Hudson. And so they're moving, and this is really exciting for us to work on that. And we have,
and I want to come over and have some of that cheese, because that's going to be.
So we are, and we're working on a food court up in Albany, and so it's really exciting. It's a different, diverse type of community-based work that we're doing, which is great fun and great people.
Well, thank you, all of you. We're almost out of time here, and this has been really inspiring on so many levels. In closing, as we talk about the future, I subscribe to a magazine called Fast Company, and an amazing coincidence happened on Thursday in my inbox. An article by a woman who I've contacted, an author, Karishma Chef. She may be watching now. She's in San Francisco. It moved me deeply, the opening, and I asked if I could read a little bit, just bits and pieces, because her article the title is "Designing a Better Future is a Moral Obligation." And you've all touched on it, each in your own way. The morality, the ethics, the equity, the inclusion, the diversity of, so that all people can benefit from equitable housing and the food desert that so many suffer from. And so I'm just going to read briefly, bear with me, and then when I'm finished, Jonah will come back on, we'll have a Q&A. But designing a better future is a moral obligation. Again, Karishma Chef, 2020 has amplified the vast problems in America. The inequities and interdependencies that have always existed are now impossible to ignore. We're collectively experiencing anger, despair, frustration. And yet I feel there's still a palpable hope that things can and will change. Design is a method of envisioning the future, of which optimism is a foundational part. Designing with optimism is to believe in the potential to create a better future. And then I paraphrase this last bit. These days, much seems to be going wrong. The pandemic rages on. The fight for racial justice in America is more urgent than ever. Natural disasters are increasing. Climate change is undeniable. So we as designers must ask ourselves if we want our reality to be different, more equitable, more just, more sustainable, more collaborative. If this question is met with a resounding yes, then we must design our future with optimism. So I thank Karishma, and I thank each of you for your time today, your thoughtful responses, and sharing your stories. Those of you who are new to Hudson, and those of you who've been here for many years. I'm so honored that I was invited to do this. And I wish there were room for, both in time and space, to have had a number of other designers, including makers of furniture, which is a special part of my interest in Hudson. So would anyone else like to make any closing remarks? I know there are two questions coming up, and I'm just looking for, yeah, okay.
Yes, to the questions. I want to support Sherry Jo, who, as well as each of these distinguished panelists, by saying, yes, you have a very animated Q&A box, which we never want to assume or presume that you do this all day. So if you click or what device you're on or what access is going on, but we have a very animated Q&A, so we'd love to tackle those. If I can just, in addition to saying thanks and appreciation, Sherry Jo, you've done a spectacular job, as has each panelist. And you know, as someone who was born in New York State, I just wanted to say we're with you. You have also really, with that quote, Sherry Jo, brought us to the root of the matter. Whether we answer the questions, whether we have a bit more time on our hands, or whether we want to tackle some of the language that exists, or that came up, please feel free. And again, we want to express our gratitude.
Thank you, Jonah. Should I offer these questions to the group?
Sure. Yeah, of course, of course.
Okay.
Feel free, yeah.
So the question is regarding around our conversation of gentrification and growth, and Jane Ehrlich has offered the question to us: do we believe that the growth of Hudson can be sustained after COVID, or after people have migrated here and COVID has gone away in 6 months or 6 years, God only knows? Will people return to city life, or do you think that people will stay or spend more time here or not go back to the city? Anybody want to jump in?
Sure. I'll start that.
Okay.
Because I feel really strongly about this. I believe, I still love the city. You know, I spent 30 plus, I'll stop at 30 plus years in the city and practice there. And I went in to see my niece in Brooklyn last week, and it's still vibrant, and young people will still go to the city to get their feet wet the way that we all did. And there are people, I mean, Hudson was thriving before COVID, and other times people have said, well, you know, people are going to move, but I think at the end of the day, people will go where it's right for them to be. And okay, there are a lot of people who have come here, and maybe some of them will come and leave quickly, but the people that this is the place for them, that it's right to be, they'll stay in this place, and they'll continue, hopefully, to be thriving members of our community. And I think that somebody told me, first piece of real estate I bought in the city was a complete dog, and I only bought it for investment. And I lost my shirt on it. And somebody told me, don't buy something you don't love, you know, because you don't know how quick you can flip it, or, you know, unless you're a real professional at that. But you know, I think the people that are buying in here because they love, they're going to stay. There are going to be some people that are going to leave just because they came only for COVID. So go back. That's fine too.
Okay. Thank you, Jane. Enid Futterman is asking, where can she buy Sheila Bridges furniture or home furnishings? Do you have a website or other sites?
Everything is, for the most part, available through my website, which is sheilabridges.com. And there's a, you know, sort of shopping button on my website, and you'll.
Where's it?
Oh,
sorry.
Those aren't for
Put
sale.
on the mask.
Those aren't for sale. Hopefully those will be for sale.
Those are at Alana now.
The Alana gift shop. But you know, we do have products for sale, and so yeah, so through my website.
Awesome. And the L&B warehouse, the antique warehouse, Robert and Brown, is it approaching? It's open on weekends? Robert,
It's open every day.
It's open every day.
It's open every day.
Sure. It's open every day. Yes, yes.
Really?
Monday
I didn't know
through
that.
Friday, as well as Saturday and Sunday. Yep.
And are people wearing masks?
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. Everything. You cannot enter the warehouse without a mask. We're practicing safety, all safety protocols. There's a lot of space between you and the vendors and the other customers. Please come by. It's great.
And that's like, I don't know, 150,000 square feet or some enormous space that you can find near the train station, near Basilica. Brown, if you are opening a store, you're thinking you're going to see what happens in the winter or spring?
Yeah, we're kind of thinking like, let's see what happens for the rest of the year, and then around the first, if it's right for us, then I think we'll move forward. We're excited about it. We were actually ready to sign in March, and this all came about, so we obviously put it on hold. But we're still excited about it, and like I say, we want to be a part of a little stronger part of the community, and yeah, I have high hopes.
Excellent. So thank you again, everyone. Those are the questions, and I thank you for taking time out of a holiday weekend and joining us here at the Hudson Eye during this remarkable cultural festival. The second year, I think we should give a round of applause to the folks who have navigated this very sharp learning curve. And thank you. I'm honored to have been invited to host this esteemed panel of new friends and old friends. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry Jo.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sheila.
It's an
Jane,
honor. It's
Brown.
It's
Robert.
our honor. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you all for attending. This has been our 9th Hot Topic panel. We have one more tomorrow that's being led by Rebecca Wolf at 1 p.m. So be sure to tune in tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Harold.
Thanks for an incredible conversation.
Thank
Take
you.
care and stay safe.
Thank
Bye,
you. You
everybody.
too.
All right. Be well.
Virtual hugs, and we'll see you soon.
For sure. Right in return. Lots of love.
Thank you. Love you.
Bye.